The Siege of Osaka, 1615. The final chapter of the Samurai Wars. The Siege of Osaka in 1615 marked the dramatic conclusion of the Sengoku period and cemented the dominance of the Tokugawa shogunate over Japan. This climactic battle pitted the ruling Tokugawa Ieyasu and his forces against the remnants of the Toyotomi clan, led by Toyotomi Hideyori, in a desperate last stand at Osaka Castle. The siege was not a single event, but rather the culmination of a series of conflicts known as the Osaka Campaign, which included both the Winter Siege, 1614, and the Summer Siege, 1615. The latter of these, fought in 1615, was the final decisive confrontation that resulted in the destruction of the Toyotomi clan and the unchallenged rule of the Tokugawa shogunate for over 250 years. Background: the fall of the Toyotomi clan. The seeds of the conflict were sown years earlier. Toyotomi Hideyoshi, the great unifier of Japan, had passed away in 1598, leaving behind a young son, Toyotomi Hideyori. To ensure the stability of the realm, a council of regents was formed to oversee Japan until Hideyori came of age. Among these regents was Tokugawa Ieyasu, a cunning and powerful warlord who would eventually seize control. Following the decisive Battle of Sekigahara in 1600, Ieyasu eliminated most of his rivals and declared himself shogun in 1603. However, the Toyotomi clan still possessed immense wealth and influence, centered around Osaka Castle, the most formidable fortress in Japan. Ieyasu, now retired but still the true ruler behind his son Tokugawa Hidetada, saw Hideyori as a potential threat to his rule. Tensions simmered as Hideyori grew older and gathered warriors who opposed Tokugawa rule. By 1614, the inevitable conflict between the two sides erupted into open war. The Winter Siege of Osaka, 1614. By 1614, Osaka Castle had become a stronghold for Ronin, masterless samurai, discontented warriors, and old allies of the Toyotomi. This growing military presence alarmed Ieyasu, who used the pretext of a golden inscription on Osaka's temple bell, which supposedly cursed the Tokugawa, to justify an attack. In November 1614, Tokugawa Ieyasu mustered an army of around 200,000 warriors, vastly outnumbering the 100,000 defenders inside Osaka Castle. Instead of a direct assault, Ieyasu opted for a blockade strategy, surrounding the castle and bombarding it with cannon fire, including the use of Western-style artillery acquired from the Portuguese and Spanish. Despite the overwhelming odds, Osaka's defenders held firm. Sanada Yukimura, a brilliant tactician, built a defensive fortification called Sanada Maru, which effectively repelled Tokugawa attacks. His men launched daring night raids, disrupting enemy formations and inflicting significant casualties. Unable to breach the castle's defenses, Ieyasu proposed a truce in early 1615. In a deceptive move, he convinced Hideyori's mother, Yododono, to accept peace in exchange for dismantling the outer defenses of Osaka Castle. Once the walls were destroyed, however, Ieyasu promptly resumed hostilities, launching the Summer Siege of Osaka in May 1615. The Summer Siege of Osaka, 1615. With the castle's outer defenses gone, the Toyotomi forces were left vulnerable. Ieyasu gathered an army of 150,000 troops, while Hideyori's forces numbered only around 50,000. Outnumbered and without their defensive walls, the Toyotomi had no choice but to meet the Tokugawa forces in the open field. The Battle of Domyoji, June 3, 1615. One of the first engagements occurred at Domyoji, where a detachment of 10,000 Toyotomi warriors under Goto Mototsugu attempted to halt the advancing Tokugawa forces led by Date Masamune and Matsudaira Tadateru. A sudden thunderstorm caused confusion, and the Toyotomi troops, unable to regroup, suffered heavy losses. Goto Mototsugu perished in battle, marking the beginning of Toyotomi's collapse. The Battle of Tennoji, June 4, 1615, the final stand. With no hope of retreat, Hideyori's generals decided on a last, desperate charge. Sanada Yukimura, leading the remaining forces, launched an aggressive attack at Tennoji to kill Ieyasu himself. Initially, the assault created chaos in the Tokugawa ranks, and for a moment it seemed victory was within reach. However, Ieyasu's reinforcements, led by Hidetada, counterattacked and overwhelmed the exhausted Toyotomi warriors. Sanada Yukimura was killed in battle, his final words urging his comrades to fight on. The remaining defenders retreated to Osaka Castle, where they made their last stand. The fall of Osaka Castle. On June 5, 1615, Tokugawa troops stormed Osaka Castle. Fires engulfed the fortress and the last loyal samurai fought to the death. Yodo Dono and Hideyori, realizing all was lost, committed seppuku, ritual suicide, rather than being captured. With their deaths, the Toyotomi lineage was extinguished and the battle came to a decisive end. Aftermath. The siege of Osaka marked the final major battle of the Sengoku period. With the Toyotomi clan eradicated, the Tokugawa had no remaining rivals, allowing them to establish a centralized bakufu, military government, that would rule Japan for the next 2.5 centuries. Ieyasu and his successors implemented strict policies to prevent future uprisings. Daimyo control. The Tokugawa imposed the Sankin Kotai system, requiring feudal lords, daimyo, to reside in Edo, modern Tokyo, periodically, ensuring their loyalty. Disarmament. Peasants were forbidden from bearing arms, reducing the likelihood of rebellion. Isolationist policies. The Sakoku, closed country policy, restricted foreign influence, ensuring stability under Tokugawa rule. Legacy. The fall of Osaka Castle symbolized the end of the Samurai Wars and the beginning of the Edo period, 1603–1868, an era of peace, cultural development, and economic growth. Tokugawa Ieyasu, though he died the following year in 1616, had achieved his goal, absolute rule over Japan. Conclusion. The Siege of Osaka, 1615, was not just a military conflict, but a turning point in Japanese history. It marked the definitive rise of the Tokugawa shogunate and the end of the Toyotomi resistance, ushering in a long era of peace. The battles of the winter and summer campaigns showcased the bravery of the defenders, particularly warriors like Sanada Yukimura, but ultimately, the strategic cunning of Tokugawa Ieyasu prevailed. The destruction of Osaka Castle was the final chapter in the Sengoku period, securing the Tokugawa dynasty's dominance over Japan for over 250 years.